tall black man named Marcus Hayes walked quietly toward Gate 17. He wore a simple button-up shirt, faded jeans, and carried a worn leather bag. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't rich. But there was something about him, calm eyes, steady steps, that hinted at stories untold. People glanced his way, some with curiosity, some with the usual dismissive look reserved for someone who didn't seem to fit among the polished elite. When Marcus handed over his boarding pass, the attendant gave him a quick up-and-down look, then forced a professional smile. "Enjoy your flight, sir." Marcus nodded politely and entered the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the luxury was evident. This wasn't an ordinary flight. It was a premium international route, with business tycoons, politicians, and celebrities filling the cabin. As Marcus made his way down the aisle, whispers began. "Who let him in business class?" a man muttered under his breath. "Probably an upgrade mistake," another chuckled. Marcus ignored it, finding his seat near the window. Just as he placed his bag overhead, a voice cut sharply across the cabin. "Well, this is going to be interesting," said Charles Davenport, a billionaire investor known for his arrogance. Sitting right next to Marcus, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, Charles leaned back with a smirk. "Didn't know they were giving out charity tickets these days." A few passengers laughed quietly. Others shook their heads but stayed silent. Marcus gave a faint smile, choosing dignity over anger. "Good evening," he replied calmly, taking his seat. Charles wasn't done. "Hope you don't mind sitting next to me. I usually fly with people who, belong here." The laughter grew louder. Even the flight attendant gave a tight, awkward smile before hurrying off. Marcus stared out of the window, his hands folded. Inside, his chest tightened, but he said nothing. As the plane ascended, conversations filled the cabin. Deals worth millions were being discussed, politicians bragged about influence, and celebrities posed for selfies. Marcus stayed quiet, sipping water, jotting a few notes into a small notebook. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Until the turbulence hit. At first, it was light. The cabin shook slightly, and a few passengers giggled nervously. But then the plane jolted violently. Drinks spilled. Overhead, bins rattled. A child cried out, "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated and fasten your seatbelts," the pilot's voice crackled overhead. "We're experiencing unexpected turbulence." The announcement cut off with a sudden bang. The lights flickered. A low alarm beeped somewhere in the cockpit. Panic spread instantly. "What's happening? Is something wrong with the engine? God, this can't be happening." Even Charles, who had been so smug minutes ago, was pale. His expensive watch glinted as his hands shook. The flight attendants tried to stay calm, but it was clear. They didn't know what was going on. Then a second alarm blared. A screen near the galley displayed an error. Electrical system failure. The pilot's voice returned, this time tense. "We're working on the issue. Please stay calm." But no one was calm. Passengers clutched each other. Some prayed aloud, others cried. Marcus sat still, breathing steadily, eyes focused. He knew exactly what that error meant. He had once worked as an aerospace engineer, specializing in emergency systems. He wasn't just a random passenger. He knew planes, inside and out. Yet he stayed silent for a moment, watching the chaos. Charles suddenly grabbed his arm, desperation replacing arrogance. "Do something. You look too calm. Why aren't you panicking?" Marcus turned to him, his voice steady. "Because panic doesn't fix planes." The billionaire blinked, realization dawning. "Wait. You know something. You can fix this." Passengers nearby overheard, eyes turning toward Marcus with sudden hope. The man they mocked, the one who didn't belong, was now their only chance. Marcus exhaled slowly, then nodded. "Yes, but I'll need access." and I'll need everyone to trust me." Silence fell. Even the pilot, hearing the commotion, peered out from the cockpit door. For the first time on that flight, all eyes were on Marcus, not with ridicule but with desperate respect. The cabin was still trembling. Oxygen masks dangled loosely above some seats. Fear clung to the air like a heavy fog. Yet, in the middle of chaos, Marcus Hayes remained calm. The pilot finally stepped out from the cockpit, sweat glistening on his forehead. "Who's causing this distraction?" he barked, but then he saw Marcus standing tall among the frightened passengers. Marcus spoke firmly. "Captain, I used to work as an aerospace engineer. I know this error. Your backup electrical bus is failing. If it spreads, you'll lose control of navigation." The captain froze. His co-pilot peeked from behind, equally pale. "How do you know that?" Marcus held his gaze. "Because I designed part of that system for this aircraft model years ago." A stunned silence fell over the cabin. The pilot hesitated, pride battling with desperation. Finally, he nodded. "Fine, come with me." Charles Davenport, the billionaire who mocked Marcus minutes earlier, grabbed his arm. "You have to save us. Please. I'll do anything, just don't let us die." Marcus gave him a small nod and followed the captain into the cockpit. The cockpit was chaos, alarms flashing, screens glitching, warning buzzers screaming. The co-pilot was frantically flipping switches, but nothing stabilized. Marcus slid into the jump seat, eyes scanning the panels. His mind worked faster than his hands. Memories of late-night projects, engineering manuals, and simulator tests flooded back. "Your auxiliary power unit isn't engaging," Marcus muttered. "That means the bus tie breaker is stuck." The captain frowned. "We tried resetting it twice." "Nothing." Marcus shook his head. "You didn't bypass it. That breaker is mechanical. When it jams, the computer can't override it." He reached for the circuit access panel beneath the console. The pilots exchanged nervous glances. "Sir, with all due respect," the co-pilot stammered, "you're not authorized." "Do you want authorization?" Marcus snapped. "Or do you want to land this plane alive?" The co-pilot shut his mouth. Marcus pulled a small toolkit from his bag, something he always carried, a habit he never lost. With quick hands, he unscrewed the panel and revealed a nest of wires and switches. The captain leaned over. "What are you doing?" "Rerouting power manually. If I can force the tiebreaker closed, the auxiliary will kick in and stabilize your navigation system." The plane shook violently, throwing everyone against their seats. An oxygen mask slapped against Marcus's shoulder. He didn't flinch. "Hold her steady for 5 minutes," Marcus ordered. "That's all I need." Back in the cabin, passengers clutched each other. Charles sat frozen, staring at the cockpit door. His mind flashed with guilt. He had mocked Marcus, humiliated him, and now the same man was his only lifeline. For the first time in years, Charles prayed silently. Inside the cockpit, Marcus's fingers worked with precision. Sweat trickled down his temple. One wrong move, one crossed wire, and the entire plane could lose power completely. "Almost there," he muttered. The co-pilot pointed nervously at a warning light. "Hydraulics are dropping," Marcus cursed under his breath. He pulled a screwdriver from his kit and wedged it against the breaker. With one sharp twist, sparks crackled. But then a loud click. The alarms silenced. The navigation screens flickered, then stabilized. The captain gasped. "It's back online." Marcus leaned back, breathing hard. "Auxiliary power is stable, but you'll need to divert. This plane won't last another 3 hours." The captain nodded rapidly. "Nearest airport is 200 miles. We'll make it." He grabbed the radio, calling in an emergency landing. When Marcus stepped out of the cockpit, the passengers erupted in cheers and applause. Some cried. Others reached out to shake his hand. Charles stood slowly, his face pale but his eyes filled with something Marcus had never seen in him before: humility. I owe you my life, Charles whispered. I'm sorry for everything I said. You don't just belong here. You're the only reason any of us are still here. Marcus gave a faint smile. We're not safe yet. Wait until we're on the ground. The plane descended sharply toward the emergency airport. Passengers gripped their armrests as the landing gear screeched into place. The runway lights glowed like salvation beneath the dark sky. Brace, brace, the flight attendants shouted. The plane touched down hard, bouncing once before roaring across the runway. The wheels screeched, smoke rising, but finally, mercifully, it slowed to a halt. The cabin erupted in cheers, sobs, and laughter of pure relief. Marcus exhaled, finally allowing himself to relax. At the terminal, news crews swarmed. The story spread instantly. Passenger saves hundreds on flight. Charles Davenport, once too proud to acknowledge anyone beneath him, stood beside Marcus at the press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Charles raised a hand. Ladies and gentlemen, today you're looking at a true hero. I may be a billionaire, but this man, Marcus Hayes, has more value than all the money I've ever made. He saved my life. He saved all of us. The crowd erupted in applause. Airline executives rushed forward, praising Marcus, offering him rewards, even a consulting position. But Marcus, with his quiet dignity, simply said, I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because every life matters. No one should ever decide who belongs and who doesn't. His words echoed across headlines, social media, and the hearts of everyone who heard the story. For Charles, it was a lesson he would never forget. For Marcus, it was proof that even in a world full of prejudice, dignity and skill could rise above everything. And for the passengers on that flight, it was the day a man they underestimated became their savior.